Oh my gosh, what are we doing? I don't know. Hey, Fringe fans, I am back to cover episode 8 of Fringe season 1. This episode is called The Equation. And as always, general spoiler warning if you haven't watched Fringe, but you want to watch Fringe, come back and listen to this after you've watched the show. I don't want anyone spoiled from missing out on this amazing, amazing show. Uh, I'm currently watching these episodes again on the IMDb app. So if you have access to the IMDb app, it's free. There's limited commercials, but it's free. So go back, watch Fringe, come back here. It'll still be here. Um, so special notes for this episode. We have some new characters that are introduced just for this specific episode, not characters that you're going to see. Well, you see one of them once again, but William Sadler plays Dr. Sumner, and Dr. Sumner is in charge of running the mental institution where Walter was for the better part of 17 years. And he's a smarmy little piece of work. We'll start there with him. Yeah, there aren't any good intentions from this guy when it comes to Walter. Uh, if you're not familiar with the name William Sadler, just to name a couple things, he played Death in Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey, and many other roles, including TV series like Roswell. Uh, Another character, let's see, the actor's name is Randall Duck Kim. I believe that's his middle name. Is pronounced the right way, Randall Duck Kim. He plays Dashiell Kim in this episode, who is a patient in the mental institution and a friend of Walter's. And if you want a reminder of who this actor is, he played the wonderful Keymaker in Matrix Reloaded and is the voice actor of Oogway in Kung Fu Panda, just to name a few of his previous projects. So let's kind of dive into this episode. Let's kind of give you a kind of summary, and I'll give you my thoughts on the episode as a whole. Um, so eventually, you see the start of this episode begins with the father and son. They're driving home, and it's torrential rain, and eventually, after some talking back and forth, his son's in the back making notes, literal musical notes on paper, and um, so there's a woman car broken down on the side of the road, and she's shouting for help. Now, first things first, parents, do not pull over. Ever. I don't care if it's not the right thing to do. Okay, just don't do it. Just don't pull over. I mean, he gets out of the car, leaving his son in the car unattended while it's pouring down rain, and oh yeah, it's night. And he pulls over by the woods. Dude, what are you doing? Come on. Okay, rant over. Anyway, he's being a good Samaritan, blah, blah, blah. He offers to help look under the hood of her car after calling for a tow truck. I mean, he could have pulled over, rolled down the window, said, "Hey, I just called you a tow truck. Um, so just wait in your car and they'll be along soon." I understand the premise of wanting to be a good person. But I mean, at night, you're pulling over. I can't. I just can't. Uh, so he decides, okay, I've called the tow truck. Let me look under the hood of the car. Maybe I can help start it back up. So the hood comes up, and all of a sudden these red and green lights just start flashing. And then all of a sudden, all we see is a sequence of going back and forth between the father and the flashing lights. And so you're looking at the father from the angle of the hood, looking up at him. So you're seeing the flashing lights just kind of keep flashing on his face, and they keep speeding up, and then back and forth to the lights themselves. And so you can see it's kind of like this hypnotic sequence. And all of a sudden, like the tow driver's there tapping the father on the shoulder. So in those moments of looking at lights, all of a sudden, the rain is completely stopped. The woman's car is gone, and so is his son. Yeah, I mean, oh, cue that wonderful intro. Jeez. Which again, I've never and will never skip that intro. uh, don't even ask. I really think it helps set the tone for the show. We have these amazing introductions and to whatever dangerous mystery needs to be solved. Like that's the beginning point of each episode. And then you have this fairly quick intro with this great music and animation, and it just blends so perfectly together. So this episode revolves around three main Fringe team members. So we got Walter and Peter Bishop and Olivia Dunham. And so they learn of the missing boy, and Olivia interviews the father. And we learn that after an accident, the mom was killed, and the boy survived, I think, after being in a coma first. And after waking up, the boy comes home, and he's basically this savant at playing the piano, despite never having played before the accident. So, uh, really interesting. And this point is important because the Fringe team learns that this woman, the abductor, we'll call her, has been responsible for other abductions over the past 10 years. And all of those people were considered geniuses in their academic fields. And so this boy is now a genius at playing the piano. So somehow they're all connected. Um, but bad news, all of these people, you know, were recovered at some point, but they were damaged uh, emotionally and mentally, and it's just the major trauma happened. And one of those characters is connected to Walter. One of the amazing things about Walter, I mean, he's such a great character, is that he, throughout different episodes, you'll notice that he will know things or he will remember things, but he's not certain how he knows those things or why he remembers them. And in this case, like he knew that the red and green lights were the reason for people being abducted, turning people, like hypnotizing them, especially, essentially. Um, so Walter's trying to remember, okay, why do I remember red and green lights? And why do they remind me of Christmas lights? And that's when he learns that Dashiell, uh, who's a friend of his, was one of those people abducted, who was in the mental institute with Walter. And apparently, Dashiell Kim is like, you need special permission to interview him because apparently he knows government secrets. So they have to get a special court order, and that's going to take several days. And Olivia's like, oh, we don't have several days. So she goes directly to Dr. Sumner. Yeah, this guy. You can already tell he has an agenda and he's defiant and he doesn't want to grant her permission because, one, like he thinks it would be too strenuous on Kim. And two, he also doesn't approve of Walter being out of the mental institute. And it's like, dude. So it just, you can sense there's just something bad's going to happen. But the kicker is, he turns it around and says, well, I'll grant your interview if Walter's the one talking to him. Because he's not a new face and it wouldn't affect his emotional state. And it's just like, okay, this guy is up to no good. There's this impending sense of, crap, Walter's going to have to go back. And if he goes back, will he get out? So it's uh, very well done. Very well job done. Oh, I can't even talk. Job well done by this actor because he just has this sliminess to him that you're just like, oh, something bad. He's up to no good. Um, and so Walter, he's adamant that he'd rather not go, but he decides to go because the boy's in danger. So I mean, that right there, you get a good sense of what Walter is willing to do to help others. He's super uncomfortable with the idea of going back, and you can see how skittish he is once they arrive, and he's going back with Dr. Sumner to see his friend Kim, Daniel Dashiell Kim. So, like, as he's walking back, he looks back through the closed door that basically looks like a jail door that they shut to keep people in, and so that gives you an idea, man. That's pretty amazing that Walter's willing to do that, and let's just say things go sideways, like Kim does get agitated, and in that agitation, Dr. Sumner sedates Walter. He sedates Walter. Like, so he basically uses this as an excuse to keep him locked up. And basically says, yeah, get a court order to get him out because I'm not letting him go. And it's like, holy crap. Uh, Crazy, right? That someone, uh, just thinking about it, like, oh, this it pulls on your nerves. Like, oh, you don't like that guy. Um, and, Olivia pulls some strings to get him out, but he has to stay overnight, which is crazy. And as he's in his essentially padded cell, you get a sense of Walter's fractured mind, where you literally see another version of Walter sitting next to Walter as he lays in bed. It's creepy. Eh, you can see why Walter is severely upset and crying because this place just affected him so badly. Yeah, it's a really striking scene because it lets you know the struggles that Walter has with his own mind. So while he's there, in the meantime, like basically Peter is able to. I can't talk today. Peter is able to basically run different aliases through the FBI database to search for this woman, the abductor, and he comes up with the town, which means that Olivia and Agent Charlie Francis will have to go on a door-to-door search. So this search happens the next day, um, basically where they're showing a photo of the boy door to door. Um, and then we also see the next day Walter talking to Dashiell again. He apologizes for making him upset, and you can see the damage that's done to Dashiell when he after like since he's been abducted. Like he's terrified of what happened. It's such a great performance. I mean, it's like it's hard to imagine the terror that he's feeling, but you see it, you hear it in his voice, and he keeps talking about being stuck in a dungeon in a red castle, which Walter, he thinks means nothing at first, and Peter does come in the morning to get him out, um, and Walter feels like he's failed. He feels like it was all for nothing, and he wants nothing more than to leave. Um, but before he does that, he's talking to Peter, and he recognizes how difficult it was to talk to Kim and how fragmented Kim was and how upset he was. And it makes you wonder, or makes Walter wonder to Peter, son, is that what it's like to talk to me? And you see this moment where Peter really has this heartfelt expression on his face and just like, hey, let's just go home. And it's incredible to see the two of them kind of connect, um, where they're both kind of learning how to be father and son, how to work together, and you see this relationship kind of build. Um, so it's incredible to have these moments because I think the show has amazing actors, and this is an episode where you have, again, phenomenal acting, and that's from the supporting cast, the ones that we're not going to see again. Kim's character, I don't believe we see again. Sumner, I think, is maybe one more time. Um, so it's really, really good episode. And so Walter feels like he's failed, and so Peter fills in Olivia while they're doing their door to door search. He calls her and he tells her, "No, nothing here. Just talked about being stuck in a dungeon in a red castle." And so they hang up the phone and they're doing this door to door search. And Olivia knows across the street there's this massive red building, and it turns out it's some kind of like abandoned, I don't know, abandoned amusement ride place where there's like old fair rides inside, like you see a carousel inside. And so they get in, and Olivia and Charlie search this place, and eventually they're like looking through these like look like mechanical hallways on the lower level where you see a bunch of pipes, uh, and then there's like an occasional door, and eventually Olivia finds the boy. And as she's finding the boy, the woman attacks Olivia, and they get into this huge fight. And eventually, the woman decides to get up and run away, and so Olivia follows her and sets her sight with her gun and tells her to stop. And as she does that, the woman presses a button, and then these red and green lights start flashing overhead to where sets Olivia up in this, as they say, a hypnagogic state. Um, I believe that's how they said it on the show. um, and so Olivia's hypnotized until Charlie taps her on the shoulder. And so the woman gets away. Oh, quick side note. One of the funniest things you'll see on a show is in this episode. Walter creates the red and green lights. He basically creates the system of lights together. He puts it together, and he makes Peter look at it, and basically the same thing, back and forth looking at Peter, close up of the lights, back and forth. The lights get faster, in which eventually you hear a door shut because Astrid's coming in, and so Peter doesn't think anything's happened until Astrid walks by and mentions how good he looks in a sleeveless T-shirt or something to that effect, and so Peter looks down and both of his sleeves have been cut. And when he goes to ask Walter if he did that to his shirt, he raises his hand, and Peter's the one holding the scissors. It's such a fun scene. Um, he's just standing there holding the scissors, and Walter's there, is like drinking a cup of tea or something. He's just shaking his head, said, "No, you did it." It's just, it's freaking hilarious. And so this show is so amazing. And so they reunite the son with the father, and you know, to show Olivia with the bruised face from the fight. And it's one of the I think one of the few moments you see Olivia really smile, and she's happy about the outcome, even though the woman got away. And you know, there's also a moment toward the end of the episode where Walter's just he's rattled, and you can tell, like, they get back to the hotel room and he says he needs more space. I think after being cooped up in the mental institute, he feels like he can't breathe, and he's just fidgety. And well, Peter is very accommodating and just says, "Hey, yeah, we can talk to Olivia about getting a new place, and that's fine." And he tells Walter like how brave it was for him to do that, and I think that kind of helps to calm him down. But lastly, because Fringe does an amazing job ending on a note where you're just like, okay, give me more of the show. Uh, we see the woman pull up to, I guess it's a warehouse or some type of large storage unit. I don't know. I think it's a warehouse, and garage door opens, and so this is a math equation that they were trying to get their hands on. Like, so the woman was trying to get from all of these people she abducted was this math equation, and they needed it solved. And apparently the boy was able to solve it. And so she pulls up, and guess who's at the garage door once it opened? It's the corrupt Agent Loeb. So yeah, he is the one from last week's episode who we discovered was, obviously he was the one who was hospitalized for the creature-like thing wrapped around his heart. But he's part of this coup with the Mr. Jones character of. Um, so we know he's a bad guy, and so the woman comes up. She's got like a envelope or folder in her hand and says that she's got the equation solved. And so we see Agent Loeb again, and which basically means like there's been more happening behind the scenes that we haven't seen and we don't know about. And that's another plus for the show, because there's that lingering, God, what else is going to happen? What do I have to look forward to? And it's such a good thing. So this math equation gets put into some device by Loeb, and so he attaches, like, I don't know, these electrodes to a personal safe. So he puts an apple in the safe, he closes it, and then he turns this device on. And there's this humming sound, and he puts on this large rubber glove, and he basically just starts putting his hand against the safe. And somehow he's able to start pushing his hand through the safe, and eventually he's able to pull the apple out, which is crazy. Like, how did he do that? Uh, so yeah, whatever this equation that they were searching for allowed them to push through physical matter, uh, which is amazing. So there's going to be something else on the horizon involving this technology. So he pulls out the apple. He takes looks at it. Then he pulls out a gun and kills the woman. Boom. There's the end of your show. This show, I can't say it enough. I mean, as I'm rewatching these episodes, even though I've watched each season multiple times, now that I have a chance to talk about it, it's so entertaining. So I highly recommend this episode, all the episodes I've talked about before this one. And that's where I'm going to stop. You've heard enough of me ramble. That's going to be it. If you are listening, Fringe fans, talk to me on social media. Let me know what you think of Fringe, what you think of this coverage. If you head to WandyParent.com, all of our social media is on there, and you can, Twitter might be the best option, or hit us up on Facebook. And yeah, it's so fun to watch. So follow our blog at WandyParent.com. Wow, I can really not talk today. If you go to YouTube, where we're sourcing our podcast episodes, click on the subscribe button. Like this video while you're there, if you would please. And I will do my best to be back sooner rather than later with the next episode in Fringe Season 1. Until then, that's going to be it for now. Thank you so much for listening. I hope to be back soon with the next episode. And until then, I hope everyone's doing well. Okay. Until next time, take care, everyone. Bye.